entire offseason has led to this moment. All of our predictions have led to this moment. It's now time to share with you our official Gridiron Expert 12-team college football playoff heading in to 2025. Who will be crowned the national champion? Going to find out right now in our mini selection show here at the channel. Here's how we're going to do it, guys. If you want to know who these teams lost to and more analysis on all these teams, go watch those individual videos. We don't have time to break down every single game for all these teams again. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you analysis on the 12 teams that are in, and then we're going to show you our projected bracket all the way to the national championship game. And how we're going to start it is we're going to start at number 12, kind of revealing who's in the team, who's in the field. Number 12 all the way to number 1, and then we'll transition to that bracket. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. We got a lot to cover. In at number 12, in the 2025 college football playoff, we have the Mountain West champions, the Boise State Broncos, returning to the playoff for the second year in a row. Obviously, the way the playoff is structured this year, it is a straight seeding model, but the conference champions do get an automatic bid, and that includes the highest-ranked Group of 5 champion. Boise State will be that team again. Despite the loss of Ashton Jeanty, they're loaded. Maddox Madsen, solid pass catchers, really good defense. Toughest game on the road at Notre Dame. I will say I think they lose that game, but if they win out, including a win in the Mountain West title, 12-1 would be very hard to keep them out over some of the other Group of 5 teams that maybe won't be as good or maybe might have more than one loss. So the Broncos return to the field at number 12. At number 11, we see another team that made the playoff last year. The SMU Mustangs. Now, here's the thing. This was a very, very tough decision for me. We knew the Group of 5 team was more than likely going to be number 12. Who to put at 11? Who really, to me, it came down to who was going to get that last spot in the playoff. And it was close. You take a look. SMU ultimately gets that spot. The ACC runner-up at 10-3, losing on the road to TCU and then to Clemson twice, both in the regular season on the road and then in the ACC championship game. They beat out teams like Illinois, Miami, the Big 12 runner-up in Utah, and then other Big 12 teams like Iowa State and Arizona State, all of which had 10 wins. Now, some would say maybe one of those teams should get in. I could not justify that. I look at this. I cocould not put Miami in over SMU. Could not do it because I have SMU beating Miami in the regular season. I look at Illinois, 10-2, not a bad record at all. But as I've studied it more, they really wouldn't have too many quality wins. Their strength of schedule not nearly as good as it would need to be. I think the Fighting Illini just miss out. In the Big 12, they're going to cannibalize each other. I could not put Utah in. I could not put Utah in at 10-3 as the Big 12 runner-up. I would have them losing 3 times in their final 7 games, and that to me would not justify having them high enough in the rankings to make the 12-team college football playoff field. Iowa State and Arizona State was very tough. Those were the 2 other teams that really fought hard, and really it came down to Iowa State or SMU because I did have Iowa State beating Arizona State. So that would eliminate the Sun Devils in my eyes for that final spot in contention. It would come down to Iowa State and SMU, and the more I looked at it, the more I lean towards the Mustangs. I don't think they should be necessarily punished for losing in their conference championship game. Iowa State and SMU, in my eyes, would both lose to TCU, and the Mustangs narrowly edge out the Cyclones for that spot at number 11. So a little bit of an insight into the thought process there on who got that really final spot into the college football playoff. SMU makes their return. Maybe will fare better in 2025. In at number 10, the Oregon Ducks. Maybe lower than people would expect for Oregon, but the Ducks come in at 10-2. A loss in their season finale at Washington could end up sending them down the rankings further than they want to be, but they still slip into the playoff, maybe in a similar spot, kind of like Ohio State last year. The Buckeyes looking good, lose to Michigan, spiral down the rankings. They got the 8 seed. We've got Oregon at the 10 seed, but the Ducks still in the playoff for the second year in a row under Dan Lanning, and like SMU, hoping to fare better than they did last year. In at number 9, the Big 10 runner-up in Michigan. Another team that might surprise some people to see in the college football playoff, but the Wolverines, we have only losing to Oklahoma early in the year, on the road to USC, and then to Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. So the Wolverines in year 1 under Bryce Underwood, with a very stingy defense, with all the off-field drama going on with the Wolverines, find themselves back in the college football playoff. They did not make it last year, obviously, but won the whole thing a few years ago. Back in the college football playoff, but they will have to go on the road as that number 9 seed. Again, I don't think they should be punished losing in the Big Ten championship, and they do get that season finale win over Ohio State to fully seal the deal. They're in at number 9, which means you'll get one kind of sneak peek at early season matchup or early playoff matchup. In at number 8, and hosting a first round playoff game, is the Big 12 champion, Kansas State. The Wildcats, 11-2, I do believe, win the Big 12. They get revenge over Utah. They lose to Utah late in the season in Salt Lake City. They beat the Utes, though, in the Big 12 championship game. Arguably, to me, Chris Kleiman's best squad yet. Great quarterback play, great running back play, solid receiver, stingy defense. This needs to be the year that Kansas State breaks through. I think they do it. They have quality wins over Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech, and Utah in the championship game. They find themselves in as the 8th seed in hosting. Some would say maybe they deserve to be higher as a conference champion, but again, the teams that you're going to see ahead of them, I think it would make sense why Kansas State is so low. But regardless, still getting a spot in the playoff and still getting to host, which is massive. They will play Michigan. We'll talk about the bracket shortly. At number 7, the Texas Longhorns. Texas Longhorns might come as a shock to see Texas so low, and we'll get into more analysis on that in a second. Texas is in at number 7, 10-3, the SEC runner-up, losing once again twice to Georgia, losing on the road to the Bulldogs in the regular season, and I think they fall to the Bulldogs again in the SEC championship, just like we saw last year. Texas losing twice to Georgia. They ended up finishing as the 5th seed in the playoff last year. And I look at Texas. Some would say, oh, why are they 7th? What about Ohio State? Is Ohio State going to be above them? We do have Texas beating Ohio State in the opener. And I will say, yes, Ohio State we have at number 6. The Buckeyes come in at 6 at 10-2, losing to Texas, losing to Michigan. So bookends. Season opener they lose, the season finale they lose, but both to quality opponents. Ohio State would have big wins over Penn State and on the road to Illinois as well, who just narrowly missed out on our field. The way I look at this is Texas makes the SEC championship game as a 2-loss team. Ohio State is a 2-loss team. This is out on the Big Ten championship game. In my opinion, I view Ohio State and Texas being very close in the rankings, maybe separated by one spot heading into championship weekend. And I have a hard time believing that if Texas were to lose to Georgia, say Texas was 5 and Ohio State was 6, or whatever you want to have it, Texas loses to Georgia, are we saying they wouldn't move a spot? They wouldn't move even just one spot? So while Texas would own the head-to-head advantage, they do get slightly punished by playing in a championship game, but not to the point of missing out in the playoff. And that's kind of my logic there. No team, in my opinion, unless there are 3-4 team or something like that, should miss out on the playoff because they had to play in their conference championship game, right? They might drop a seed or two. That is understandable, but to miss out entirely, I disagree with. That will not happen to Texas. They're in at number 7. Ohio State is in at number 6. Alabama is in at number 5. 10-2. They make the playoff in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer, and it really does feel like a playoff or bust type of year for the Crimson Tide after a disappointing 2024 campaign. Alabama, in my eyes, will win their final 4 games of the season, which would skyrocket them in the rankings considering they're going to be playing quality opponents. Final 4 games of the season, 3 of them would be over LSU, Oklahoma, and on the road at Auburn. They finish strong. They skyrocket up the rankings. Alabama is in at number 5, and that solidifies all the teams that will be playing in the opening round. The next 4 teams that we address will earn a first-round bye in the college football playoff. In at number 4, the Clemson Tigers. The ACC champions in our eyes, we have going 12-1. I think they will beat LSU in the season opener. I think they will beat South Carolina in their season finale. They will lose one conference game. Go check out our Clemson video to find out who that will be to. But the Tigers find themselves back in the playoff, won the ACC last year. This year's team way better than the one we saw last year. This is a true national title contender. They're in at number 4. In at number 3, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 12-0. Now, that might confuse some people. How do we not have Notre Dame as number 1 being at 12-0? And I do think not having a conference championship will hurt them just a little bit, as we've talked about for years and years and years with the Fighting Irish. They will earn a first-round bye. They're eligible to do so now because of the straight seeding model. Last year, they were unable to earn a first-round bye because they did not have a conference championship. So they get a first-round bye, which is massive for Marcus Freeman's squad. They have some great, tough games in there that I think they're going to win. Miami, Texas A&M, on the road at Arkansas, Boise State, who's in the field. Navy won't be easy. USC won't be easy. I think Notre Dame wins all of them, but not good enough to earn the number 1 or even number 2 overall seed. because overall, the SEC strength of schedule, the Big Ten strength of schedule will be tougher than that of Notre Dame's, and the two teams ahead of them will have won their respective conferences, giving them the slight edge over the Fighting Irish. So Notre Dame in at number 3. At number 2, the Penn State Nittany Lions. It's really, really tough. It was so very difficult for me. Do I give the number 1 seed to Georgia? Do I give the number 1 seed to Penn State? Obviously, Georgia going to be number 1 champions of the SEC. I leaned more towards Penn State at number 2. They lose on the road to Ohio State. They run the table the rest of the way. They have a big win over Michigan in the championship game. They beat Oregon in Happy Valley in the whiteout game. But Georgia's strength of schedule just a little bit better. Their quality of wins to me a little bit better. They're going to beat Texas twice. They'd have a win over Alabama. I like Georgia. Just the wins they're going to have a little bit more. That's going to be the tipping point for them. So Georgia gets that number 1 seed. Penn State right behind them on opposite sides of the bracket. Could be in the national championship. But those are now the 12 teams that we have making the 2025 college football playoff and how we have chosen to seed them. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket. We've got some awesome first round matchups. We'll start on the left side. Michigan at Kansas, Boise State at Alabama. Love both of those games there. The Wolverines and Kansas State could be a low-scoring game as both those teams are going to have very strong defenses. A cold game in Manhattan. It's going to be a fun one to watch. The winner of that will take on Georgia, and we'll touch on that here shortly. Boise State at Alabama. How great is that going to be? Does Kalen DeBoer get his first playoff win? A very favorable matchup. Boise State got the benefit of having a first-round bye last year. They don't get to have so now, so they're going to have to go to Tuscaloosa to face a strong Alabama defense and this elite wide receiver core as well, led by Ryan Williams. So it's going to be a really fun game to watch. Of course, Alabama's certainly going to be favored, and we'll share our predictions for these here in 1 second. On the other side, I love that Oregon-Texas game. Oregon at Texas, to me, by far the best opening round matchup based on these projections here. The Ducks struggled last year in the playoff, got torched by Ohio State. Texas won at home last year over Clemson, was very close to making the national championship game. Arch Manning versus this Oregon defense late in the year, going to be an epic matchup. Again, by far the best. SMU and Ohio State. SMU traveling to another Big Ten team. Last year they traveled to Happy Valley, got destroyed. This year they traveled to Columbus, where Ohio State began their magical run last year, started with Tennessee all the way to the national championship. Can SMU fare better now against a Big Ten team late in the year? Will Ohio State defend their national title crown? All that remains to be seen if they can make a run or not, but I will tell you, on those 4 matchups, I do believe that Kansas State will beat Michigan. I do believe Alabama will beat Boise State. I do believe Ohio State will beat SMU, and I don't think it'll be relatively close. And I do think that Texas-Oregon game, as great as it's going to be, I lean more towards Texas, the preseason national title favorite for many. They keep those hopes alive with a win over Oregon. The Ducks' national title hopes fall short once again. Disappointing ending for Dan Lanning's squad after 2 successful seasons. So with that being said, our Elite Eight, if you will, is Georgia versus Kansas State, Clemson versus Alabama. How about renewing that rivalry in a way? Penn State versus Texas, and Notre Dame versus Ohio State, a rematch of last year's national title squad. So if you thought the opening round matchups were great, the Elite Eight matchups, if these predictions hold, are even better. I look at these games. I think Georgia doesn't make easy work of Kansas State, but will dispatch the Wildcats there. I think Gunnar Stockton is going to prove to be a little bit too much for this Kansas State defense, and as good as this Kansas State defense is going to be, do they have enough up front to take advantage of this Georgia offensive line? Can they get enough pressure on Gunnar Stockton? Can they handle this Georgia offense? I think it's going to get better as with each passing week. Last year, Georgia, their run fell short. They got a first-round bye. It fell short because of quarterback injuries. If the Bulldogs stay healthy, they could make a run back to the national championship. Neutral site, week of rest, I think they beat Kansas State. Keep in mind, last year, all 4 teams that had a first-round bye did lose their opening game. All 4 teams that had a first-round bye lost their opening game, so it's not always a great thing to have a bye, but I think this year Georgia is able to handle it. They advance to the Final Four, the semifinals, if you will. Sticking on that side, Clemson, Alabama. God, what a matchup. We saw some great matchups between these squads in national championship games year after year after year, it felt like. Haven't seen it happen in a while. Now we get it now in a quarterfinal matchup. Cade Klubnik versus Ty Simpson. This Clemson defense versus Alabama offense. It's just going to be absolutely electric. But at the end of the day, I side with Clemson. I'm going to give the Tigers the edge here. I love Cade Klubnik in this offense. They were good last year. They're going to be even better this year. I think I love the defense even more. Clemson is one of the most complete teams in the entire country. And I do think Ty Simpson is going to pan out for Alabama. But if he does go through some struggles, and I think he will struggle a little bit against Clemson, which will be one of the best defenses he faces all year long, I don't think the offense will move the ball as well as they need to. And I think the defense can only hold on for so much against the Clemson offense. And again, it's going to be better than what we saw in 2024. So the Tigers advance. They will take on Georgia in the semifinals. On the other side, great matchups. Penn State and Texas. Drew Aller versus Arch Manning. This was nearly the national championship game last year. Penn State narrowly lost to Notre Dame. Texas narrowly lost to Ohio State. I mean, we were just a couple plays away from that being the national title. Instead, they both fell just short. So both these teams are going to be hungry to avenge some losses last year, hungry to try to get to that national championship game. Ultimately, I am going to side with the Nittany Lions. Penn State advances to the semifinals again. It will be a barn burner of a game, going to be very, very close. I know everybody wants to say James Franklin can't win the big games, but again, he was just a few seconds away from being in a national championship last year. This feels like it has to be the year for the Nittany Lions. Maybe it is. Their hopes stay alive. I think they take down Texas. I am concerned about their offensive line still a little bit. This Penn State defense will be one of the best in the country, especially with Jim Knowles now as defensive coordinator. Penn State advances. They'll either face Ohio State or a rematch against Notre Dame, who they did face in the semifinals last year. Notre Dame, Ohio State, though, a rematch of last year's national title in the quarterfinals? You kidding me? How great is that? Give me, though, Notre Dame to avenge their loss from last year. And I know both these teams have a lot of new pieces, so it's not going to be like a complete rematch from what we saw in last year's national title. But I think Marcus Freeman's going to have enough to get the win over the Buckeyes this year. Notre Dame's furious comeback last year fell just short, but this Notre Dame defense is the real deal, one of the best in the country. I think they give Julian Sayin a little bit of issues here. I think they're able to shut down Jeremiah Smith, who torched them at times in last year's national championship game. Notre Dame avenges last year's loss to the national title. They advance back to the semifinals, where they will get a rematch against Penn State. So an interesting similar path for both of these teams. Penn State, Notre Dame, last year met, in the Orange Bowl, came down to the final seconds. Notre Dame gets the big interception, kicks the game-winning field goal, goes to the national title. Does history repeat itself? No. I think Penn State beats Notre Dame and advances to the national championship. Finally, for James Franklin and the Lions, they get there. It's going to be an epic game again, a fairly low-scoring game again, just like we saw last year because of how good these two defenses are. But at the end of the day, I take the experience of Penn State's offense over that of Notre Dame. Drew Aller, two great running backs, finally went out into the transfer portal, got themselves some receivers. This feels like it's going to be the year for Penn State to break through and get to that national title game. They avenge last year's loss to the Fighting Irish. Penn State's in the national title. Who will they face? Will it be Georgia? Will it be Clemson? Don't let recency bias sway you in this. You know, we've seen Georgia destroy Clemson. What was it, last year's season opener? It was just absolutely horrendous. Both these teams have changed in big ways since that moment. We've seen these teams face off over the last decade or so in some classic games. I think we're in store for another one here. Again, two fantastic defenses going up against it. Defense does win championships, but at the end of the day, kind of like I said with Penn State and Notre Dame, I'm going to go with the team with more experience. I'm going to go with the team that I think has the better offense. And who's that going to be? It's going to be Clemson. Give me Clemson to advance to the national championship, which means we have a unique one. The number 4 seed versus the number 2 seed. Clemson versus Penn State. That is my projected national championship. It's not Texas. It's not Alabama. It's not Georgia. It's not Ohio State. It's Clemson and Penn State fighting for it all. And who will win the national championship? Who is the Gridiron Experts pick to win it all in 2025? Believe it or not, I'm going against the grain. It's the Penn State Nittany Lions. My preseason number 1 team, I think, goes coast to coast. They don't stay at number 1 the entire year. Clearly, they're the number 2 seed in the playoff. But I have said since back in February, I believe Penn State is the most complete team in the country. They are loaded on offense. They are loaded on defense. They've got a great head coach. Say what you want. Yes, I know James Franklin hasn't really won the big games, although last year he did get them to the playoff and got them seconds away from the national championship. 2 playoff games? Should have won 3. I know he hasn't had the greatest track record. I know Penn State has struggled at times. This feels like the year. It has to be the year. If it's not now, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think Penn State delivers. I think James Franklin delivers. The Nittany Lions win the national championship in an absolute thriller over Clemson in a very unique national championship game, adding to the more fun and the clear signs of parity that we see in college football. I think this 12-team playoff is better than the one we saw last year. Penn State goes coast to coast. They don't slip up in the bye week. They beat Texas. They avenge their loss to Notre Dame, and they take down a hungry Clemson team to clinch the national title. So guys, there you have it. our 12-team college football playoff prediction. We knew it was going to be a long video. We hope you enjoyed it. We don't expect you to agree with it. That's the beauty of prediction season, though. No one knows what the heck is going to happen. No one knows, but we will start finding out here in just a few days. The college football season is here. We have finally made it. We're going to be here with you every step of the way. Our regular season content begins tomorrow right here on the channel, and we'll be here, again, every single day, every single week up until the end of the season. Welcome back to college football. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. The link for it down in the description below. Also, check out our weekly newsletters, also over on thegridironexpert.com. You do not want to miss out on those. Tons of exclusive content to help you get through this offseason, which is pretty much over, but tons of exclusive content that you're not going to want to miss during the regular season. So go check it out. The link for it down in the description below. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.